It all started with a simple smile. A warm, radiant expression that lit up my wife Avery's face as she eagerly announced her plans to attend a reunion with her old college friends. We had been married for 12 years, and in all that time, I had never questioned her sincerity, her love, or the unspoken trust that had formed the very foundation of our relationship. That Friday evening was like any other. Avery stood before me in her favorite dress, a stunning piece that had always accentuated her timeless beauty. Her excitement was infectious, and I couldn't help but feel genuinely happy for her. As she leaned in to kiss me before leaving, she playfully reminded me not to stay up too late. I chuckled, nodding, fully trusting her as she walked out the door. The night started peacefully. I settled onto the couch, a cold beer in hand, with a movie playing in the background. Avery's nights out were nothing new, a routine we had settled into over the years. I had always been content to let her enjoy her time with friends, confident in the strength of our bond. But as the hours stretched on, an unsettling feeling crept in, subtle at first, like a whisper in the back of my mind, then growing steadily louder. Normally, Avery would post a quick update, a photo, or a check-in on social media. But tonight, there was nothing. The silence gnawed at me. I tried to dismiss the unease, convincing myself that she was simply caught up in the moment. Yet, the later it got, the harder it became to shake the feeling that something was off. By 1:30 a.m., concern had settled in like an uninvited guest. No messages, no calls, no updates. It was unlike her. A heavy pit formed in my stomach, and for the first time in our marriage, I did something I had never done before. I accessed our shared phone account. My hands were steady, but my heart pounded. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I found it faster than I had anticipated. One name stood out, Daniel. The messages between them were unmistakably flirtatious. "Can't wait to see you tonight," read one. The word struck like a punch to the gut. Who was Daniel? I had never heard of him before. He wasn't one of our mutual friends, or someone she had ever mentioned from her college days. The easy familiarity in their exchanges, the teasing tone. It was clear that this wasn't just casual small talk. At 3:30 a.m., I still sat in the same spot, paralyzed by what I had uncovered. Then, the sound of her heels clicking against the hardwood floor snapped me out of my daze. She was home. She moved quietly, likely trying not to wake me, unaware that I had been wide awake for hours. She seemed startled to find me sitting there. I forced a calm expression, masking the turmoil inside. "How was the reunion?" I asked casually. "It was nice," she replied too quickly, avoiding my gaze as she busied herself with removing her shoes. Her movements were rushed, nervous. I watched her carefully, the name Daniel ringing in my head like an accusation. "Who showed up?" I continued, keeping my voice light. "Oh, just some old friends. You wouldn't know them," she said, her tone airy and dismissive, but I knew she was lying. Her words felt hollow, scripted, as if she had rehearsed them in her mind before stepping through the door. I didn't confront her that night. I needed more than suspicion. I needed undeniable proof. Over the next few days, I played the role of the trusting husband while secretly gathering evidence. I scoured her phone, checked her social media, and pieced together the fragments of her interactions with Daniel. Each discovery only confirmed what I had feared. Their connection had started innocently, but had deepened over time. The final, irrefutable proof came in the form of a photo, a candid shot of Avery and Daniel at a party. He had his arm wrapped around her waist, and her head rested on his shoulder in an intimate, almost tender gesture. The closeness between them sent a sharp pang through my chest. I knew then that I couldn't let this slide. But I didn't want to merely confront her. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal. I started digging into Daniel's life, tracking his online presence, gathering details that would later be crucial. At the same time, I discreetly installed cameras around our home to capture any future conversations or interactions between them. I needed a plan, one that would ensure she understood the magnitude of her actions. One afternoon, Avery casually mentioned she was meeting a friend for coffee. I knew better. I knew she was meeting Daniel. This was the moment I had been preparing for. With meticulous precision, I compiled a damning collection of evidence. A carefully edited video showcasing their flirtatious messages, the intimate photo, and footage from our home cameras. Then, I took it one step further. I anonymously uploaded the video to a popular social media platform, framing it as a cautionary tale about trust and betrayal. Within hours, the video went viral. That evening, as Avery walked through the door, her phone buzzed incessantly with messages. She frowned at the screen, confusion morphing into panic as realization dawned on her. She turned to me, her face pale, her hands trembling. "What did you do?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. I met her gaze, the weight of my heartbreak pressing down on me. "I showed you the consequences of your choices," and in that moment, as the walls of her deception crumbled around her, I knew there was no turning back. The relentless flood of notifications was deafening, an unceasing storm that marked the unraveling of Avery's carefully constructed reality. She clutched her phone in trembling hands, her expression shifting from initial confusion to stark, unfiltered terror. Each buzz of her phone was another dagger, another reminder that this wasn't just a private reckoning between the two of us. It was public. The whole world now knew. Her fingers trembled as she unlocked the screen, her breath catching in her throat as she scanned the barrage of messages. Text after text, accusation after accusation. Her face drained of color with each passing second. Then, finally, she looked up at me, her wide, panic-stricken eyes meeting my steady, unwavering gaze. "What is this?" she whispered, barely able to get the words out. Her voice was laced with shock, disbelief, and an ever-growing fear. I said nothing. Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. But my lack of response spoke volumes. Louder than any words ever could. I watched as the realization hit her in full force. Her knees buckled slightly, and for a moment, she looked as though she might collapse under the weight of it all. She searched my face, desperate, pleading, hoping for some sign that this was all a mistake, some cruel misunderstanding. But there was no misunderstanding. I remained still unmoved, as the bitterness of betrayal that had festered inside me solidified into something cold and final. Tears welled in her eyes, spilling down her cheeks as she choked out an apology, her voice broken. "I'm sorry," she gasped. "I never meant for it to get this far. Please, please forgive me. I love you." Love. The word felt hollow now, meaningless. The love I had once held for her had long since been replaced by an empty void. The same emptiness she had created with her deceit. I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. For a fleeting, selfish indulgence, you really thought I wouldn't find out? My voice was calm, unervingly so. Every word landed with precision, a blade cutting through the air between us. She flinched at my words, her lips trembling as she tried to respond. But no defense came. There was nothing left to say. She had destroyed everything we had built together, and now she was left with nothing but the wreckage of her choices. "I don't want your apologies," I said, my voice devoid of warmth. A sob ripped through her, raw and desperate. She collapsed to her knees, clutching at my legs in a frenzied attempt to hold on to something. On to me, but it was too late. I stepped back, her grasp slipping away as easily as the trust she had shattered. The relentless buzzing of her phone continued, a cruel reminder of the world watching, judging. She grabbed it again, her fingers moving frantically as she scrolled through the flood of hateful messages. Friends, acquaintances, strangers. People she had never met were now condemning her, labeling her a liar, a cheater, a destroyer of trust. The flawless image she had so meticulously maintained was in ruins, her pristine reputation nothing but dust. Her gaze snapped back to me, desperation turning into pure pleading. "Please," she begged, "take it down. I'll do anything. Just Just take it down. A cold satisfaction settled over me. The video I had uploaded was no accident. It was calculated, deliberate, a meticulous expose of her betrayal with Daniel. There was no denying it, no spinning a false narrative. The world saw her now for who she truly was. I'm not taking it down, I replied firmly. You made your choices. Now, you're dealing with the consequences. Her sobs turned ragged, her breath coming in uneven gasps as the reality of her situation fully sank in. She had believed she could deceive me and walk away unscathed. But there was no escaping this. There was no undoing the damage. The world knew, and there was no turning back. Without another word, I turned to leave. There was nothing more to say. No confrontation. No explanation could repair what had already been broken beyond recognition. Her sobs echoed behind me as I walked away, her voice fractured with grief. "Where are you going?" she cried, her voice sharp with panic. I didn't answer. Silence stretched between us, heavier than ever. The man who had once loved her, who had given her everything, was gone. She had killed that part of me with her betrayal, and all that remained was someone who could no longer bear to look at her. "Please don't leave me," she sobbed, but I kept walking. The walls of our home, once filled with laughter and love, now held nothing but echoes of what had been lost. I packed my bags in silence, her muffled sobs filling the space, but I never turned around. It wasn't that I felt nothing. It was that I had given her everything, and she had thrown it away as if it meant nothing. In the days that followed, my inbox overflowed with her apologies, her explanations, her desperate pleas for another chance. I never responded. There was nothing left to say. As for Daniel, he vanished, deleted his presence from the digital world, as if erasing his online existence could somehow erase his involvement. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. He had entered my life, stolen something that wasn't his, and now he was left to face the fallout. Avery and Daniel were left to pick up the shattered remnants of their ruined lives, their reputations in tatters. Meanwhile, I moved on. The pain lingered, but with it came something else, strength. I had taken back control of my life. My revenge, though harsh, had given me the closure I needed. And in the end, the silence between Avery and me became the final, unspoken conclusion to our story.